Hey everybody, this is Blue. Hope everybody's doing good out there. Well, I am way overdoing a book review, and thanks to inspiration from my son last month, we're going to do Alchemy Companion. Last month my son visited me for a week and we talked about and worked on our role-playing games. We had a really good time. And he asked, how do I incorporate alchemy into my game? And so I was telling him that alchemy is a very broad subject, so it's kind of hard to figure all that out, and I was still working on that. Well, I think I'm overdue, so let's go talk about the Alchemy Companion by Iron Crown Enterprises. This book was released in 1992. It is 205 pages long, and that's why it's said in its crunchy goodness. There has been a lot going on between crispy and crunchy games. People who played rule-like games, they were saying that games like Rolemaster were crunchy. They were overloaded with rules and stipulations and heavy in the numbers and all that. And this was their way to kind of put a jab on the rules-heavy games, to insult them, to say that rules-like games were better. Well, I could say the same thing about rules-like games. I could say that they suck, because in my opinion they do. Rules-like game does not have the structure, and so they can't handle the weight. They're thin, just like the rule books. They're awfully darn thin, and they can't handle the weight of anything that's detailed or requires a lot of work. And there's a lot of people that when they do their rules-like games, they don't want anything complex. They want to just be able to do their little voice acting skits and call it good. And that don't work for me. I like my rules-heavy games, and this is a rules-heavy game. This is their supplement, 205 pages. This is bigger than some of their rule books for their whole system. So if you can only play a rules-like game, you might as well shut off the video now, because this is not for you. Alright, so for those of you who stayed, who love the rules-heavy games, let's get into this. The artwork is very good on this cover. A little bit darker than what I would have used because I'd wanted to stand out, but I guess they were depending on the little blue lightning going through his fingers to catch people's attention. And in a way, yeah. But I do like the artwork, and they have a lot of black and white artwork in this book, and so there's plenty of good artwork throughout the book. This was well created by Iron Crown Enterprises, the original Iron Crown, not the new one. The original was out of Charlottesville, Virginia, and they did a lot of research. In this book, there is a lot of references to history. And so there is a lot to learn in this book. And my personal opinion is, it doesn't matter what system that you're playing. If you want to implement alchemy more and more into your game, this is probably the best source book you're going to find, because there is a lot of information in it. There we go. So this is just starting off. This is talking about fabrication, and again, they're talking about the history. Alchemy, you see, is not a simple topic. Alchemy covered a large area, not just Europe. Alchemy was also found in Asia. We're talking about India, China, and then also in Africa. And if my memory serves me right, they're saying the earliest forms of alchemy were in Egypt. We get the word chemistry based off of the word alchemy, and we technically really don't know where that came from. But there is a lot of historical information in here. They're talking about working with metals, and they're talking a little bit, like I said, they got the historical. They're talking about brass, bronze, bell metal, and they have a lot to offer. They talk about working with gems, glass, woodworking, ceramics. So you see, alchemy is not strictly just working with metals. Paper manufacture. Because you got to remember, this is fantasy. There was not a lot of going to the local store and grabbing a ream of paper. You know, it took time and effort to get everything. And while they do have historical, they do have some fantasy in here, because they're talking about enchanted material here. And, you know, Galvorn, Eog, Mithril. They have a lot of information. Cragora, my gosh. And if you don't know what Cragora is, it is an anti-magic metal. If I remember right, it's because of the uranium that's in it. We talk about, well, guilds, historical, and how to create others. You got apothecary, laboratories, and equipment. This is why it is a crunchy, because you cannot have a traveling alchemist with his lab being in the back of his wagon. He would just need the back of his wagon just to hold the supplies that he would need, not any of the equipment. Historically, alchemy was also listed by the church as being, you know, shady, full of charlatans, and so that's why it has charlatans into it. And they're talking about different forms of alchemy, and so there is a lot that you can. They're showing different ways for you to implement alchemy into your game based on your magic level. Some of the charts. So this again is why it's crunchy. We have a lot of requirements into this, because you can't just go to the local blacksmith and say, I want 2 ingots of copper, 2 ingots of bronze, an ingot of tin, and then just magically, you know, and you have whatever. It is a long, tedious process. And so this book has a lot of information in here for you to create items. And so you cannot have a crispy game using all this information you hear, because this would be overloading the crispy game. They're talking about prices, how to figure out prices for the magic items that your alchemist is going to make. Because, you know, in real life, your alchemist needed a patron. He needed a way to make money so that he could buy the supplies and pay the people for his experiments. So this is a very complex system. So they had to make things and sell things and look for materials for your stuff that you want your alchemist to make or tinker in. Again, they got plenty of history referenced here. A lot of rules, a lot of reading to do. And then also, as you can tell, this particular sets of pages are off center. Be careful where you get your PDFs, because sometimes, because these books are out of print, all they have is the literally scanned image of a book, and sometimes those scans aren't the greatest. So you can see where they are talking about focuses and influences. If you are wanting to create a alchemy system in your game, here you go. Okay, now they've gotten them talking about skills. Nice thing about Rolemaster, they use a skill system so that you can make each profession unique and each character unique. Because you don't just have alchemist and have this cookie cutter which tells you at what level what they can do and all that. No. You can tailor make your character and make them as unique as you want. And like I said, right here's another chart thanks to our good old Rolemaster. So you can make it very difficult for the alchemist, which is something that you need to do, because you know, if you make it too easy, you're going to lose balance in the game. And the last thing you want is for your alchemist to somehow just make gunpowder out of the blue, and then he's got all these people that have black powder weapons compared to everybody else that has bows and arrows and crossbows. Okay, so that can really ruin your game. So you got to challenge it and make sure that things don't lose balance, because like it's an important part of the game. They talk about making spell adders. They are covering a lot of information. Ah, yes. Professions. Now, like I was telling you, that alchemy covered a large area, a lot of cultures, and they covered a lot of different topics too, because they had organic and inorganic skills and professions. You know, some were trying to create medicine, you know, to create an elixir to promote immortality. Then they had scientists, well, alchemists, that were looking for the ultimate solvent, you know, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, and that. So there was a lot of different aspects to alchemy. So you could not just have a single alchemist profession for everything. So here is their skills for the different professions. You had your, this is for your basically your more historical alchemist. Your royal alchemist, you know, that had their king or a duke for a patron. Inorganic, they would work with your more metals and gemstones. And organic, this was medicines, pharmaceuticals, okay? And some of these also, they had some spell lists later on about tattoos, and I always thought that was kind of cool. The evil alchemist. Now, in my game, I decided that there wasn't going to be any evil professions, that all professions can be used for good and evil. So some of this pure evil stuff that they have in a lot of Rolemaster games, is rewritten so that anybody can do good and bad. It's their intent. I don't have an alignment chart. The other weird thing about this is their professions. Oops. There we go. For Rolemaster, they had essence, mentalism, and channeling. And so you could have two professions that are very similar, but they're different because one's a mentalist profession and the other is a channeling profession. And so I'm not going to do that. I have my magic as one realm, not 4 different realms. Nice inclusion of having the dwarven alchemist, a shamanic alchemist, because there is realms of alchemy that we're talking about embedding attributes from spirits, from demons, from angels, whatever, into items. And so here's the profession to do that. Geomancer, which worked on more focused on the earth. Grand Vizier. This was more, if I remember right, was for the Abrahamic Muslim areas. It was pretty interesting. An engineer. Semi-spell users don't have all the grand spells, but they have some spell work, and it's pretty interesting. The Tinkerer. Delver. So by having all these separate professions, they can cover specific areas, and that's what I've done in my game. There we go, the charlatan, the con artist, and a craftsman, yes. Now we're getting into spell lists. Now, there are 75 pages of spells in this supplement. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Rolemaster system, they go generally 1 through 50 for spells. But on this, they have some spell lists that go up to 180th level, like right here, Enchanting Ways. Generally with Rolemaster, you take your spell list divided by 2.5, and that will give you the level approximation for like your D&D. So, but the 180 is going to be pretty hard. Here's what I was referring to, because 50 divided by 2.5 is 20th. And since 20th is your highest level possible for your D&D clones, that's why we use it. There you go. Get to work with organic skills, inorganic skills, liquid gas. They're covering a wide area, and so you can, really make a unique character with all these different spell lists, and you can rework them into your professions. The Philosopher's Elixir, which is a byproduct of the Philosopher's Stone. Gem Seeds, I thought was kind of interesting. So like I said, you got a lot of information. Automata, if I remember right, was the building of constructs and golems. So here are a set of spells for all of you who wanted to have an army of golems. Well, here you go, you can do it. There's going to be a lot of reading required to do all this. Reanimation is the making of the homunculus. Dark arts. No really such thing as a dark art. Brewing law. Okay, you want to make potions? Here you go. Symbolic ways. And they got, you know, more spell lists. You know, for every profession has their own base lists, which is nice. And, you know, as a GM, you would be able to go through here and you can combine professions, which is what I kind of did. And you can sort through the spell lists and you can make a lot of interesting, unique professions to your game. Tattoos. Yeah, this part I thought was pretty interesting because you can then put like a tattoo of a bear on your arms, and then you can, due to magic, have the strength of a bear. I thought that was pretty awesome when I first started playing with this. Then the Evil Alchemist base of is basically spell lists that destroy magic items, which I think, you know, all alchemists should have. You need to be able to make and break things because you might have made something wrong and you want to get rid of it. Maybe you have found a weapon from a rival and you want to destroy it, because as long as it exists, there is an example of their work, and we don't want that now, do we? Demon embedding, like us talking about spirit embedding. Oh, there it is. So you can take an attribute of a demon and put it on the body. And you can work it a little bit where you can take the attributes of a dragon and put the tattoos on, and you can have like magical wings, or maybe you can have a tattoo on your throat and you can have a small breath weapon. And so this is where I was talking about. They got mentalism embedding, and that's just to do mentalism, and then you have to have one for channeling and essence. Well, because of my arcane rules, there's just arcane magic. It's not divided into all these different realms. Intelligence embedding. I never understood that part. Personal power, that would be kind of like Sauron and the Rings of Power. You can put yourself into your items. There we're talking about transmutations. This is about turning one item into another, so you can turn, like they got wood to earth, stone to earth, and so you can take and change everything. I think I went back. I'm going through this, you know, each spell list so you can see what's in it. I think it's important you see what's inside this book before you try to buy it. This book is out of print, so you will never be able to buy a new edition of it. Everything will be used. Or you can buy this, I believe it's RPG drive-through or drive-through RPG, whichever. and you can buy the PDF from them. There are a few sites that give these PDFs out, so you don't have to pay for them. And if you are brave, I would suggest you do that. That's where this particular PDF came through, and you can see things are not nice and even. Charmcraft. So you can make charms, you know, good luck charms for your party, for people, and sell them. Spirit totems, yes. I always like that. And I'll get into all that in the next video. And so, like I said, they have a lot of specific spell lists. So I think some of these spell lists can be combined and edited out, and you might be able to cut these spell lists in half. I like having different spell lists because then you can make a custom profession. Like I said, you know, I forget how many they had. I think it was like 12 different magical professions, and you could cut that in half if you wanted to, which would make it a little bit more challenging in some ways, but I think more rewarding. One of the things I've done in my game is in standard Rolemaster, your professions just got 6 spell lists. And so that can kind of turn into a cookie cutter as well. Because, you know, every alchemist has the same 6 base spell lists. Well, I have the rule where a pure spell user has 12 lists and a semi-spell user only has 6. And so that makes, with there being more spells for the pure spell users, each one is more unique. So, I mean, I've really enjoyed this, working on Alchemy, but sometimes it was kind of overwhelming to try to put everything in here, because that is one bad mindset you could have in the game, is you could try to put everything in it, and that will slow you down. Ah, yeah, some of the guild spell lists. So like I said, you can get overwhelmed because, yes, there is a lot to use here. So tailor it down to make it work for your game. Also, advice to my fellow GMs out there, you can get so into trying to implement it all that it takes away time from other aspects of the game. And so that could make it harder for you to, you know, progress and kind of get a little depressed because you're wishing, man, I wish I have gotten more done. Well, if you spend too much time on a complex system like implementing all these alchemy rules, yes, it could take away from your game. Now, I like some of these spell lists because, like here, you got spell lists for glass and ceramic mastery, you know, metal mastery, stonework. It could make, you can tailor your professions nicely. And so many people I think forget, let me go back to that one, paper mastery. A lot of people can't grasp that paper was hard to come by back in the day. Yes, they weren't able to make paper at somewhat of a good scale, but there's no way that a common person could afford to use that much pen and paper to work on spells and everything else to scribe. I mean, that's why even in the semi-industrial U.S., in a lot of the Midwest schools, the kids back in the day used chalkboards, mini chalkboards and chalk, because there's no way that they could do pen and paper. Ah, yes, now we're getting into some tables. You know, this part right here, I love. Explosion critical strike table. Yes, because there are failures when you are working with mysterious elements. You don't know what they're going to do when they interact with each other. And so you have to, I believe, realistically, put the risk that your alchemist, your PC or NPC, is going to blow themselves up because they are trying to purify something and they weren't ready for it. Because, like, let's say that they're working with something that is similar to gunpowder. Well, if they've never used it before and they don't know what's coming up, then all of a sudden they go light a match, boom, they should get hurt. Mangling. You have a lot of equipment. So, yes, some people are going to get their hands stuck in it sometime and get mangled. Steam critical, because yes, we are working with high temperatures and all that. So yes, there should be, you know, a pipe burst and woohoo. Magic item interaction. Oh yeah, that one was fun too. And so we got a lot of tables to go through. These are because there are steps into the process of building something, you might have to do 4 or 5 skill checks to see if you made pure steel. And this part, I think this is an important table, and this is why it can't really go crispy, because some things take a long time. Historically, when they were trying to find sulfuric acid or something like sulfuric acid, one scientist in England was boiling human urine for like 2 weeks, trying to see what he can make out of this. And it was the residue from after boiling urine for, like I said, 2 weeks, that they found phosphorus. And this is the phosphorus that they put on matches, and that's how they worked early matches. Now they don't use urine, obviously. They found other ways to make phosphorus, to refine it and all that. But this is some of the complexity and weirdness that we got to throw into our games. And there we go. There are results tables. An explosion attack table. Yeah. Now we're almost done. All right, so the rest of this is the spell index. Like I said, they had 75 pages of spells, and so they were going by spell here for their spell index. So this unfortunately takes up quite a few pages. But like I said, they did an excellent job of, put in information. Bibliography. They're trying to give the reference materials and a lot. And you can see that they have a lot in here. And now it's just talking about the products, other products that Iron Crown Enterprises makes. So I think this is a book that every serious game master should have if they want to have any form of alchemy in their game. I love the book. It can be overwhelming if you are not ready for it, and sometimes if you are just thinking, that's not right, I want to put my own homebrew version, spin on something, then you got to kind of go and think, will that work for everything? But online, this book is around $40 to $60. And if you can find the book, go for it. I found the PDF that I just went through, and I printed it off. And it's nice, yes, but having the original book would be better. So if you have a chance, get the book. It's full of information for you, and it would really add to your game. I would say, it's worth its money. So please put your comments down below, and everybody have a great day. Take care. Be at peace.